be here with you tonight with all the scientists. And I say that because I'm not a scientist, I'm a lawyer. And we are not in WA, not in BWA. I work with the German Federal Ministry for the Environment in formulating energy policy and drafting energy laws. And in doing that, I have to rely very much on real science. So I'm here with you. My task now is to spread some good news. Over the next minutes, I'm going to show you that it is still possible to limit global warming to 3 degrees Celsius, you know, the threshold Martin was just pointing out. And I'm going to show you that climate protection, in particular by increasing energy efficiency and renewable energies, and economic growth are not contradicting each other, but instead ambitious climate change policy and economic growth, they complement each other. Martin just said limiting global warming to 2 degrees Celsius, that is the goal, and that is what the world has committed to in Copenhagen in December last year. And there's also some science around that shows what that means. That means we only have carbon dioxide budget left of 750 billion tons until 2050. That's the bad news actually, because that means we would have to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions dramatically. That those curves you just see, they show how much we have to bring carbon dioxide emissions down. You see the 3 different curves. The green ones is if you start right now, we have more time to do so, and the longer we wait, the steeper the curves get, the more difficult it becomes to reduce carbon dioxide. To give you an idea, that budget of 750 billion tons of carbon dioxide means that each of us, that is now right now living on this earth, has 2.7 tons of carbon dioxide per year for the next 4 years. It's 4 years until 2050. But just compare that what we are now emitting at this point in time. In Australia, we emit about 20 tons of carbon dioxide instead of 2.7, which we would be allowed to. In Germany, the country I'm from, we are emitting 10 tons of carbon dioxide. World average is 4 tons, more or less, and we have to go down to 2.7, and that's why the curves are relatively steep. So that is the bad news, but and keep in your mind, the longer we wait, the more difficult it gets. The good news is actually the world is moving. As I said, in Copenhagen, the world leaders have embraced the target to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius, and that translates into the left column, the IPCC data that says that industrialized countries like Australia, like Germany, like the US have to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions by 80 to 95% by 2050, and the European Union, as an example, with 27 member states, they have embraced these targets to reduce their carbon dioxide emissions by 80 to 95% by 2050. Germany is one member state, has a target to reduce its emissions by 80%. US in the climate change bill that's before the Senate has not yet been passed, but it's in the Parliament. The US also has this target. Australia, let me say that, is not up to standard at the moment. The target that has been put forward with the CPRS bill is minus 60%. That would not be enough. But as you see, at least some countries are moving forward, and that's part of the good news. The question is, will we be able to do that? Can we deliver? Can we really reduce our carbon dioxide emissions to the extent that's necessary? And there are some studies around, I'm aware about 5 or 6 in the science world, that show that actually yes, we can do that, we can reduce our emissions, and what we have to do basically is increase our energy efficiency and supply all energy we need from renewable sources. This graph here shows you the upper line is the business as usual case. If we don't do anything or nothing, we're increasing our emissions along that line more or less. And what we can do, what we have to do, is the upper part, the red one, is that what we can save, energy savings through increasing our efficiency by insulating our homes, by using double glazed windows, by driving fuel-efficient cars, buying more efficient fridges and things like that. That is energy efficiency. That can reduce down our emissions to that level more or less. And underneath that, the blue part is renewable energy, and it is possible according to all scenarios, to supply our energy needs with renewable energies, and to reduce the black part, the fossil fuels, down to zero basically, and by such reducing the emissions to the extent necessary. I shall say that this is just one example, one scenario from an Australian research institute. There are a few others around, and they are all slightly different. They all have the two elements, increasing energy efficiency and renewable energy sources. Some of them also include, like this one for example, carbon capture and storage, so capturing the emissions from, let's say, coal-fired power plants and burying underneath. And particularly the scenario from the International Energy Agency also includes nuclear power as one means of reducing carbon dioxide emissions, but still the main shares also in those scenarios is renewable energies and energy efficiency. I'm now starting to concentrate a little bit on the blue part here, on the renewable energies, because that is my particular expertise. And I'll show you on this chart that it is possible that we have huge renewable energy potentials. You see on that right-hand side, that little dot, the red one, is yearly global energy consumption. And from there on the left, this is the potential renewable energies have. This shows the potential wind energy. You see, I don't know how many times it's bigger than the yearly consumption. It's enormous, and that's also true for biomass, hydropower, and geothermal. And the biggest source we have is solar energy. And so this chart gives you an idea that it is from the potential. It's really easy to supply our energy consumption with renewable energies. And I'll now give you some examples of countries that move forward also in terms of renewable energies, and I'll use Germany as an example because that's my country I know about best. And Germany has embraced relatively ambitious targets for renewable energies. You see on the left-hand side the blue color. Oh, sorry. This is the overall targets that have been in place since 2002. Germany's target for 2050, for the middle of this century, is to have 50% of all its energy used for transport, heating, cooling, and electricity by renewable sources. That translates into 33% in the transport sector, biofuels, and electric cars. In the heating sector, for the heating of homes, and so 50% shall come from renewable energies by 2050, and most ambitious in the electricity sector. It's 80% or between 80 and 85% that, according to the strategy that is in place, has to come from renewable energy. At this point in time, the government is revising its energy strategy, and there are some indications that the government is going to rise the targets. The Environment Minister just recently published an article in one of Germany's biggest newspapers arguing for a case of 100% renewable energy by 2050, and there's some other indications that the government really is moving forward more quickly even than under the existing scenario, and really moving to a renewable energy, German energy society. I shall also say that it's only just one example of countries moving forward. Spain just last week announced a target of supplying 23% of its total energy supply by 2020 from renewable energies, and in the electricity sector in 2020 to supply 40% of the electricity from renewable sources. The next slide shows you how the electricity system in Germany could look like with 80%. You see, this is where we are right now, 2010. A lot of energy is coming from nuclear, coal, black coal, brown coal, natural gas, coal generation of fossil fuels, and on top of that is renewable energy, about 10% at the moment. And under the scenarios, 80% scenarios, that's where we end up in 2050. Then only a small remainder comes from black coal, brown coal, cogeneration of fossil fuels. And on top of that, all that here is renewable energy, 80% renewable energy from biomass, hydropower, is wind energy, the biggest supplier. On top, geothermal, photovoltaics, and some energy imported. And under the scenario, it's coming from Northern Africa, basically, but it could also come, from hydrogen, or it could come from Australia. But this is how the scenario looks like. That is what Germany is targeting at, and where it's moving towards at this point in time. And the interesting thing maybe here is that there have been